outside Zimbabwe, having established, of course, your credibility in the local market, because they are able to give you some advice on twinning arrangements in 45 member states. I thought that was great news for all of us to remember. So, if I can come to Mrs. Nancy Busha, who is the Managing Director of Kane's Foods, to talk to us about what she's heard, what she has experienced, bearing in mind the theme for the day. Nancy.
Let's give you a hand.
Thank you very much, Charity. It's always interesting to sit and listen to people presenting about something that you are deep in and something that you are trying to get into, because as Ken's Foods, for which I'm the CEO, we're trying to get into the export market. And we had not thought that we would want to export until maybe 2019 or 2020. As Gift said, you can't hope to be a good exporter if you haven't really saturated the local market. So our strategy was to saturate the local market, and then maybe 2-3 years from now, start to go into the rest of the world, so to speak. I want to add that under CZI, I'm sitting next to my president here, I am chairperson of the Grocery Manufacturers Association. So I really try to talk not only about Ken's in a very narrow sense, but to talk about our experience as grocery manufacturers in a very broad sense. Now, the thing which has become apparent in the last maybe 6 to 7 months is that while we celebrated the demand, that everything that our ministry, I saw Minister Bimo was here earlier, and people such as the Reserve Bank were trying to do to help us resuscitate and even to help us start to export. The reality is that we carry a very, very big burden as Zimbabwean manufacturers, which makes it very, very difficult for us to find ourselves being competitive, because that's a word that I've heard used already a couple of times this afternoon. You have to be competitive. And when you go into the region, because you first of all try to export to your neighbors, so we're looking at satellite, we're looking at commercial markets before we try to go further abroad. And what you will quickly find is that you may get there, you may have an offering which is fantastic. The buyers that you talk to, the retailers that you talk to, they'll tell you we like this. And then they'll come down to the one essential component that everybody has to talk about when you are in a market. They will say, talk to us now about price. And the moment they touch price, you quickly realize that as Zimbabwean manufacturers, we are carrying a massive burden. It's like putting us into a race with, I don't know, Usain Bolt. Nancy, the race Usain Bolt, but Nancy additionally, I'm just going to tie a bag of cement around one leg, and good luck. And what I would really suggest is that for us as manufacturers, we really think that the whole of Zimbabwe should be declared one massive export processing zone. Because the reality is that we need to look at the cost of utilities. We need to look at taxes. Everything that the Reserve Bank is doing, with all due respect and great appreciation, so please don't lower my allocations going forward. I think it's like one partner trying to carry the burden for everybody else. Because when you find that they're talking to us about 5%, and then they're talking to us about 12.5%, they are realizing that we are not competitive, and they're trying to bring the money in. But everybody else, with all due respect, that doesn't seem to really realize that it has to be synergistic. So if you overtax me, if my utility prices are higher for water, for energy, for whatever, they're going to find a home in my price. And when I go into those export markets, they're going to ask me my price. I'm not going to be competitive. The 12.5%, whilst we appreciate it, we've got products that we are trying to export. We've got people in South Africa, in Zambia, in Malawi, in Mozambique saying, bring me these products, But guess what the discount has to be versus what's on the shelf, because let's face it, the person we're competing with is South Africa. The discount we have to give is 30%. Now, I certainly don't have 30% just sitting as fat in my margin. And I don't know if I can actually go to the Reserve Bank and say to them, give me a 30% incentive. At what point in time does the Reserve Bank also just say, I can't afford it? So I would really recommend that what we need to do is we need to look at the heavy load we're carrying. And, you know, the Reserve Bank also talked about lowering the cost of borrowing. It's still expensive when we consider that little line that we see whenever we look at our bank statements, which say this account is denominated in US dollars. And we could sit and have a debate about, are our accounts still in US dollars, or are they in, I don't know, some have called them dollars, some have called them whatever you want to call it. But the reality is that we are working in the US dollar economy. We are borrowing at, when it's very competitive, 7.5%. When it's not competitive, we may go as far as 13, 14%. And so we are starting with a great load stacked up against us. If you go into the regional market, you will find that some of the companies that sit on the Grocery Manufacturers Association, you will find their product on shelving. You will find it at a much lower price. And what you are going to find increasingly is that you're not going to find it in the big retailers that will give us the scale that we need to bring in all the forex that we are looking for. You're going to find it more in the informal trade, and you're going to find that it's the smaller guys who we wonder, are they paying all their duties? Are they making sure they adhere to all costs and quality structures, particularly if you're exporting something like food? Those are the people who actually have the ability to take product and put it on a shelf across the border at a competitive price. Maybe because they don't carry like such big overheads. So every company that you will find trying to export in Zimbabwe, they're paddling furiously at the moment, cutting costs in every single sort of way that they can. But still, you will go across there and find that you're not that competitive. So I believe we have good products that are good enough to compete. I would say some of them internationally. We do have products going across the borders, but we are just never going to be able to compete effectively until every single stakeholder realizes that they've got a role to play. And we look at Zimbabwe and say, because the challenge that we have at this moment in time is one of generating forex, which means that we have to export. What is each and every person around the table going to do? What are the tax authorities going to do? What are our bankers going to do? What are the city councils going to do? All of us, what are we going to do? Because it is a national problem, but really I don't think every single stakeholder is coming to the party to support us in our place to try and export. Thank you.
Thank you very much for what she has made. She really would like Zimbabwe to be one big export processing zone with all the associated benefits and incentives to boost competitiveness. She just didn't stop there. She also said each one of us needs to look in the mirror. We are contributing to the high cost structure that we are operating under, not just my sector, which I won't mention, but everybody else. So on that, I would like to move to my colleague, Ephraim Chawoneka, the Executive Director of Nedbank, to also give his perspective. Ephraim?
Thank you, Charity. It's always difficult when you have your president here and your supervisor as well, because everything that you then say will be held against you. But anyway, I would want to endorse the role, the facilitative role that Reserve Bank is playing in ensuring that they lessen the burden on the nostril side. One thing that I've noted though is that Zimbabwe remains with space for suppliers to come through and exploit. So in other words, as banks, we do not need to stop at lending only. We have to go beyond the call of duty and engage suppliers such that we resuscitate in certain cases or expand certain instruments that I think probably had gone to sleep. We've got warehouse receipting, What I'm basically saying is that we have to engage suppliers to come through to Zimbabwe and be able to forward, move the raw materials into the country before payment is done. It is better to claim of a shortage when the raw materials are sitting here in Zimbabwe. We can always discuss issues pertaining to payment, issues pertaining to repatriation of the foreign currency. But we probably need to get to that space where, in as much as one's constituency is talking about the financing itself, we also need to get to that engagement where suppliers will also risk participate in the procurement and bringing of commodities, raw materials into the country before payment is done. I'm saying this from experience. We have seen it with fertilizer companies because Reserve Bank pointed out that we're actually sitting on a hefty balance of RTGS, and it is a fact. And that is actually an opportunity that as financial institutions we need to take advantage of. So with that, because I know if I want to go into the issues of capacity and things like that, I will be put to test by the central bank here. But that is one point that I probably want to put across to the audience, that we need to move in that direction and not only concentrate on the issue of the dollar itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ifem, for your intervention. Let's go beyond just lending as banks. Let's look at it.
Of currency and the least generator of currency. So that has to change because it's not sustainable. But we also have to look at where we are coming from. Local companies have just been working on trying to turn around, get their heads above water, as it was indicating. But we've now found that we also need to do the extra thing. We have to generate, we have to export. And if we go back, we used to even, when we used to, during the hyperinflation cycle, just pre-hyperinflation, when we had received dollar, we even used to export at cost to just get the currency to be able to service the local market. So we have to think outside the box. What is interesting about the two presentations is that the RBZ is doing quite a lot in terms of providing incentives, working on facilities to help fund export. But it is also important then to think about what the roles Zimtrade plays as well, the export facilitation. So I'm glad that the chairperson of our Committee of Trade is here. There are some significant points that we are going to pick for this presentation, particularly what the Afri-Exim Bank can do. I was actually quite impressed with the number, with the extent of facilities and the advisory services which can help helping to match identifying markets. The second thing, the issue of facilities to fund retooling, was using all technology again will be expensive. We're not as automated as our competitors, which may affect even our cost in terms of production. So these facilities are all basically working towards improving will improve our competitiveness. The issue of currency is certainly an issue, but of course it pushes us towards being able to be competitive. But using the US dollar is in itself a challenge because, as you know, it's a very strong currency to use, and competitiveness is the challenge. But as has been demonstrated, it is not impossible. But it is really an issue of, one, the companies that we have rising to the occasion and realizing that the new imperative is now to export. And any CEO who is here who's running a local company will tell you already blood pressures are running high, just manage local issues. But I suppose this is the challenge of our time. We have to do this. There's no option. But as I said, what we can say is should give us a level of comfort is that the facilities are there. One, as I said, from the RBZ, Afri-Exim Bank already we can hear the discussions that our bankers, the input that our bankers are giving. We are thinking around also how we can do this. But perhaps unfortunately, what we found, it means you can't do it between 8 and 4:30 or 8 and 3. We have to bend the midnight oil to actually take in all these things that are happening. Right now, just to add one more thing, there are issues to do with the cost of doing business. There are rapid result programs that are currently ongoing. There are about 63. And it is again the same people that are running organizations that are chairing and working on these rapid result programs in the various sectors as per the Zimtrade pillars. But I think the cry that we have, particularly here referring to the rapid results program that was concluded, the one that's for improving the ease of exporting, is implementation. What is to be implemented has been agreed. It's been agreed, but it's not happening. So how do we get the exports to go up? Even as much as Zimtrade is doing its best, but we have identified these as hindrances. So we have a lot of work to do, but also we need the policymakers to also complete their task. Then I believe that all these facilities that are there, because at the moment I do not see a reason why Zimbabwe should not grow its export by even 40% in the new year. The facilities are there. African Bank is ready. Our business is ready. Our bankers have indicated they are ready. So policymakers, please come to the party goals. Thank you
very much. A word from the president of CZI. He first looked in the mirror and said, yes, guilty. We are the major users of foreign currency and the least, or relatively, least generators of forex. He also challenged us to re-engineer our businesses. The solutions of the past are not going to make us competitive in the future. We have to bring new thinking to what we are doing, the equipment, the technology that we use, the management practices that we use. He also talked about issues around the cost of doing business, that we've agreed the actions. What is lacking is execution. Again, we are looking in the mirror. It's on us. We are challenged again. So the question is, what more can we do? Let's first focus on that. I'm sure we can always point later, but for the beginning, let's look at ourselves. What more can we do? What new things can we bring on board to make us more competitive as we move forward? Questions, comments from the floor are welcome. Wonderful. When you speak, please identify yourself so that we can engage with you.
The competitor when exports is South Africa. Now we need to now look at South Africa. What is it that they do? If you look at the incentive systems that I heard the Arabs are talking about, I'll tell you, for instance, there is the issue of capital investments, where you can get grants 50 to 80%. It's well documented. There is the green, when you're going to green areas, 50 to 70% of the grant, you will get that. There are things like, when you go into things that require a lot of technology, all those are grants. Now, what then happens with that is when they price a product, and Nancy, when you price a Kenya's product, competing against South Africa, and the incentive you have is 5% of whatever in Zimbabwe, you have an uphill battle. That's why you can find that 30% fat to play with. South Africa will be playing around with about 50 to 60% fat in a margin, because some of the costs, they are not bearing it. It's borne by the government because they actually have a focus on exports. They are focusing, they call it exporting up north. I would think before the Arabs and talks of the incentives and the finance ministries, let's just do a comparative analysis with our major competitors. And these things are available. And the Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa is doing a lot to actually empower the exporters. So we might find that the exporters are really trying hard, but they are failing on matching the price. So I don't know what the comment from other business would be, because I believe manufacturing will do everything they can, but as long as that is not addressed, that's our competition.
Again, we need to appreciate what the Reserve Bank has done in terms of implementation of the online CD1, which was a recommendation of our committee. And beyond that also, we would like to congratulate them on the extended investment scheme, which is again our idea. We had actually suggested that industrial exports should be given not 5% but 15%. They come to 12.5%, which is not bad. But on this, I'd just like to make a comment which I made before. I think that on industrial exports, we have actually declined from $1 billion about 3 years ago to $400 million. Now, when it comes to mining and tobacco, these products are primarily determined by international prices. And the exports that occur are really determined by the incentives from the international market. And if you speak to the people in the gold sector, the chrome sector, platinum sector, they appreciate the 2.5% or the 5%. But it really does not make much difference to them. That's the honest truth. If you didn't give them the 5% incentive, they would still export and want to export more. The people who really need the incentive are the industrial exporters, who are disadvantaged by the fact that Zimbabwe is a high-cost economy. So what we were suggesting is that you should redesign your export incentive scheme to scrap the incentive for the mining sector. It's not needed. They're doing well, and we can guarantee to you, because we are also in the mining thematic group, that mining sector exports will increase by another 15-20% without your incentive. Okay, it's going to happen. But what we would like to suggest is that you should move that incentive scheme only for industrial exports or manufactured exports. Let it be 12.5%, but cover all manufactured exports. Point number one. Second point is that we would also like to suggest that manufactured and industrial exports, the people who are doing that should be allowed to keep their export proceeds in nostros, which they can use for their raw materials. That will help them a lot. In terms of, so these are the two suggestions that we have in terms of the export incentive scheme and in applying to manufactured and industrial exports. And just a small one also, just since you are here from the Reserve Bank, which came up in our mining thematic group, we used to have quite an important jewelry industry about 10-12 years ago, until the Reserve Bank decided to stop giving gold fidelity printers to the jewelry industry, and so it collapsed. So we are now looking under Zim asset at increasing beneficiation and increasing beneficiated exports. The jewelry industry used to employ 2,000 people, now it employs about 50. So we are considering this, and we are certainly, one of our recommendations is that fidelity printers should give priority to giving gold allocations to jewelry manufacturers in Zimbabwe. So we would just like to take that into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Those current percentages are not. Mr. Masedu, are you able to repeat the issues that have come through? Prof has just said the mining sector doesn't really need the incentive. Whether we give it or we don't, they'll still export. And that we need to allow export proceeds to remain in the nostrils. Interesting proposition. And also the third one is that we need jewelry industry to get some support. I can see your hand, but I would like to give you an opportunity to respond. Then we will pick up some more issues as well. Thank you.
Those comments, issues that are being raised. I think I will quickly go through the issues. I will start with the one for jewelry. The jewelry issue, I think if we check, we recently, end of August, revisited that arrangement. And why we had taken that stance and position was purely because of the significance that we attach to gold, the way we will leverage it on our gold deliveries to Fidelity to arrange various lines of credit and in the process ensure that we create capacity in the nostro, which is key and to ensure which is key in the provision of the foreign exchange for the economy. It was quite easier that way because you have a facility that is ring-fenced on gold and the foreign exchange comes through and you can easily appropriate it to various sectors of the economy. Not suggesting that the sector is not been contributing, but I think it was necessary then to have such a structure. But what we have also been doing is to work on gold production. And for last year, we increased our gold production to 22 tons against a target of 24. We have now a target for this year of 27, 28 tons. And that should also then create space for setting aside part of that gold production towards jewelry manufacturers. And I can indicate to you that we have companies right now, the likes of Orex, for example, notwithstanding that it's another business subsidiary, but we also have got other players, which I cannot mention now, that have actually come through and we have given them the allocations. We now have a quota for jewelry. So that is something that we are working on. Maybe the industry will start really making an impact towards the end of the year, but I can assure you that there is now a quota that's specifically set for the sector. The second issue relates to retention of manufacturing exports by the industry for own use. I would want to assure you that currently the policy is quite clear. All the manufacturers, they retain 100% of their export proceeds. Where the Reserve Bank is access to foreign exchange is largely in the mining sector. In this we have done because of the other policies that are in place to ensure that those will generate significant. The CZI president has actually indicated that what is coming through the manufacturing sector is quite low. And we have said, let's ring-fence that for the sector so that they can create capacity. And that is the policy that is in place at this juncture. Then on the issue of the scrapping of the export incentive scheme for the mining sector, as well as the general competitiveness of the incentives that are being given, I think the key issue would be to realize that at least there are efforts that are being put in place to look into the export business. I think if you look at it, for a long time, we have not had these structures in place. And the culture of exporting is now that there is this crisis that people are beginning to realize the significance of exporting. And I believe that what the bank has basically done is at least to take a lead in trying to promote exports, particularly given the recognition that we attach on the foreign exchange. But I think it would also be important, and this is something that we'll take up, to continuously review the impact of the export incentive scheme. Ideally, what we want to achieve is what is to be consistent with the theme of this conference, to enhance competitiveness. So it's something that obviously we'll take home to continue to look at. But I'll just put a comment on gold production. The small scale, I highlighted their contribution. And if you look at most of the gold that is smuggled out of this country, it's through the small scale. And I will tell you that what we have done by giving this incentive is at least to create parity with prices that obtain in South Africa, where much of our gold is being smuggled. And the moment we gave that incentive, we actually saw deliveries now coming through formal channels. But I think overall, the message that's coming through, a take home for us, is to continuously review the structure of the export incentive scheme to enhance its impact on our exports. Thank you.
When you pick up the next question, as I'm sure there will be, please address also the proposal of extending the 12.5% to all manufactured exports. There was a hand over there. Yes, can we have a mic over here? And while Mike is coming, maybe he can comment
On the
just going back to Ken's, what they're saying about competitiveness in the region for export pricing. What we found is, from a South African point of view, that's the gentleman mentioned there, that is our main competitor. But what we're finding is the South African export prices compared to the local domestic prices, there are huge gaps. And what's actually happening is those products are being exported into countries like Zimbabwe and into regional countries. And what we're finding is all the excess capacities that the South African manufacturers have, they're not necessarily making margin out of that. They're basically keeping their factories at full capacity, which is affecting our industries. And very often you can pick up the newspapers where government is saying that local industry protection is not forever. My belief, and we are an exporter in the region, we are competing as the South Africans. From a pricing point of view, we compete from a quality point of view. And my belief is take away the duty protection in Zimbabwe and you won't be any industry in this country. Because we cannot compete against countries like South Africa that are exporting at cost to keep their factories at full capacity and expecting industry in Zimbabwe to survive against a factory that's exporting at cost. And I think it's very critical for the government to actually understand the pricing that's coming through into Zimbabwe in all the various sectors, what the input pricing is coming through, and also measure those prices against the local domestic prices in South Africa. Because in itself it is dumping, but obviously what we've looked at is the dumping laws take so long to actually enforce that government needs to understand that what's actually going on in the industry. From an industry point of view, we're very capable. I think we're more capable than the South African industry. But it's the factors that are affecting us that are stopping us from taking our businesses forward.
The marketing agents always tell us that South Africans get there with a bag of money for market spend. But when we get there, we're empty. We have nothing in our hands. We don't even have a ballpoint pen to give to the agent. So the agents always corner us. You Zimbabweans, producers, you come here with no money for market spend. All we can give them is to say, we'll give you the product. And let's find a way, give us an invoice for the market spend. But what they believe, which the South Africans have taught them, is that we must just go there with a bit of money and say this is so much money, 10% of annual turnover, we give you, that's the money, keep it, use it, and then tell us what you've done with it for market spend. I'm telling you, this is the truth of what is happening in the region. And so we are losing in the region because of that. Number two, the region generally is our customers are not paying on time. So it's very difficult to collect. And when we can't collect, the Reserve Bank red flags us. But what we're saying to the Reserve Bank is that the region is a tough market. So let's work together. Don't red flag us. Because if you red flag me, I get charged penalties, I can't export. But what happens if you are red flagged? I'll stop the export. I'll give an instruction, no exports, immediately. Then there's a delay until I'm green flagged. So all these things are adding to the cost of doing business and exporting. Thank you.
We are told that there is still something to be put in place by the Reserve Bank. It's not yet there. When is it going to be there if it's not yet there? Thank you.
Issues. Let me start with the red flags. I mentioned earlier on during my presentation that when we export, it's prudent that the export process come into the country. So we have got these statutory limits in terms of the period that export process can be outside the country before they can be repatriated, and that's up to 90 days. That's the statutory timeline. You want to bring the liquidity into the economy. That's why we have got that timeline. But what we also do, because we understand all those dynamics, that it's not always that when you export you immediately get paid and within 90 days you can repatriate your export process. Not always. Where you are going beyond the statutory provision of 90 days, you can always ask for an extension. I think we have granted extensions of even up to 180 days. We have granted extensions of up to 270 days. And this is mostly pronounced in the mining sector. Because sometimes you have to take your products, it goes through those assaying processes before they can confirm whether it meets their requirements, and then the process comes. The same can apply in your case. We have exports that are going into the region because of challenges in countries in the region. There are delays. All you need to do is to approach your bankers. The president is here, and Mr. Chawoneka from Medbank is also here, and they know these arrangements that we grant dispensation. What we cannot do is to extend the acquittal period, because the impact of that is delayed receipt of funds, and this compromises our nostro position. So that can be dealt with. You can get a dispensation to extend the acquittal period of your exports. Then on the export finance facility, this is readily available, and again, through these institutions, the banks. If you notice in my presentations, I indicated that the disbursing agents are the banks. And you can be able to approach any bank. Maybe you need to indicate to us which bankers have not have indicated that they can't advance that money. That money is critical for retooling, for creating capacity for you to increase production. So if there are challenges, it's probably because of issues that we can be able to attend to. But I can confirm to you that all these facilities are readily available at banks. There are some banks that have actually drawn down on these facilities that are already making advances to their clients. So you can indicate to us which bank in particular, so that we can also improve, because the key issue for us is the increased uptake of these facilities. Then lastly, on the issue of the 12.5%, what I didn't want to, it was a conservative amount, because what we're also trying to do, I think someone highlighted that, can I approach the bank and ask for 30%? Will the bank say we can give you a 30% incentive? Let's also look at the fact that the incentive on its own, especially this export incentive scheme, is not adequate for as long as we have not attended to other issues. We talked of cost drivers. If your electricity is going up, we can never match those particular increases and assume that this incentive will cover that. So that's why there is this stakeholder approach to holistically look at the package, so that at least these things are complementing each other. But I won't say a figure. I will tell you that we have gone beyond 4.5%. Because if I give you a figure, you will all come tomorrow. And I don't want to be looking at those things. But there are cases where we have gone up to 17.5%. The issue is there merit? And are we financing exports that will make an impact on our pool? You don't want to give someone who is exporting 100 only, but we have created precedents and everyone is going to be following on that. So we can consider, justify your requirement, the reason why you want X%, whatever magnitude it is, and then we can always be able to look at that. But I think the key issue is we also need other arms of government to come in. If electricity comes down, I'm sure you will say you want 1%. But the reason we are doing that is because there are other cost drivers that are making it uncompetitive for you to compete in the region. Thank you.
Thank you for this movement there. This issue of 12.5 or 17% does raise a question of leveling the playing field, managing the expectations. If people don't know how long the piece of string is, how do they know they will qualify? How do they know they've had a fair shake on their application? I think this is what I'm hearing coming from the floor, that let's put a framework that everybody can look at and say, I think I will qualify, or I have difficulty qualifying. Because from one bank to another, from one client to another, it may raise the question, how objective is this assessment? So maybe that's something for the central bank to think about. I think the mic is there now. Thank you.
once bitten, twice shy. Now, a lot of people here, especially those industrialists, have gone through a similar process, not exactly the same, and they were bitten, and they're a lot shyer. So how's that going to impact export and general regeneration of the economy? The second truism is, if you continue to do the same things and expect a different result, that's a sign of insanity. Are we doing the same things? What are we going to do different? But I think that the question to the panel is a central one. Why are we here? And I think, as Sipilani said, we've got to dig deep and make this happen. Why are we here, and why have we got to dig deep? If we don't answer that one, then quite a lot of the debate here is going to be in vain. Thank you.
The question on cash. I can confirm that all banks are prioritizing exporters as far as the availability of either cash or nostro balances. You just heard from the Reserve Bank that the retention for manufactured exports is 100%. And guess what? Every exporter is looking at their value chain and saying to themselves, what do I need as my inputs? How can I reduce my cost of doing business? If my supplier needs X, I will try to go to the bank to say, look, I need this input. Please facilitate it. When we all do that, in short, every exporter will basically use up their own money. And if we have people who need cash, who are not exporting, the likelihood that they would get the cash is very slim. Hence, the encouragement for people to use plastic money, including the farmers, using eco-cash, Texta cash, what's the other third one? Electronic delivery channels. We have to face that truth. And certainly, I'm sure I speak for my colleague, when we have cash coming in, we say to ourselves, would we rather give it to individuals or give it to a company that can use it to generate more? And these are difficult decisions we are all having to take. So I would encourage all farmers, and I always have this question for some farmers, that they get an allocation today. They've got tax shops on the farm. Next week is the same request. When does the cash go? So it's a scarce commodity, therefore it must be rationed and allocated. So I encourage everyone that we use electronic delivery channels. I cannot answer for the others who are using, not accepting plastic money, but I'm sure the message has gotten home. For those who need to do something about it, they will do. Then the last one was, once bitten, twice shy. I'm the chair here, so I'm not going to think too deeply about anything. Anyone wants to deal with that? Why are we here? And remember, once bitten, twice shy. What will we do differently to get different results? Anyone wants to?
Had slid in a recession as Zimbabwe did. The danger that you have, and it's evident today, that you are on a daily basis firefighting. There has been little focus on medium and long-term initiatives to deal with the underlying problem. So all these cash discussions that have been predominant in the last 18 months, these are symptoms of very deep underlying economic challenges. And fast forward, why are we here? My understanding is that this gathering is sharing experiences with an organization that plays a policy advocacy role, an organization that can reach across ministries that sometimes operate as silos, so that those multi-sectoral challenges can be bucketed in one space and addressed. So if our tariffs are going up and they are affecting the competitiveness, and there's a tax on the other side, and there's administration of CD1s on the other side, and each one is pulling the same firm into different challenges. You create a platform like this one to try and consolidate all those and agree a mechanism and an approach to all the stakeholders who sit in the solution bucket. Good suggestions. Try to understand what the competitors are doing. Analyze them to a great depth and see what you can emulate and how you can differentiate yourself even much more better, so that when you emerge as a competitive force, you can do better. There was a comment made by my colleague here that you cannot function with the old technology which was making Zimbabwe shine 20 years ago. The technologies have changed. The global economic dynamics has changed. During the 90s, there was no China. Today there is China. You used to sow jeans here. If you try to do that and see how much they will cost, you cannot compare with China. At the time, South Africa was just coming out of a restrictive regime. So the full impact of South Africa had not been felt at the time Zimbabwe was doing fine in the region. So all those things need to be put, and then you say, where to from here? Can you still do best in the areas you do best 20 years ago? Probably no. So when you start saying retooling, maybe you shouldn't be thinking of retooling. You should be thinking of what are the new sectors that your economic dynamics would put Zimbabwe on the platform of a competitive economy. It doesn't answer your question, but it's just a thought.
Thank you very much.
Just going back to the issue of why are we here. In our discussions with industry, we've been looking at what we need to solve, what we need to do with the various challenges that we face. But it's slowly coming out that one of the key issues is what was said earlier on. We're running a trade deficit on and on, we close the year, we continue. It's a forex problem. It's a forex generation problem. One of the biggest issues. Yes, we've got fiscal deficits and everything else, but eventually it's a forex problem. And then I'll go back to the issue about industry to say, which is they would use their employing most of the challenge. Are we as industry doing enough? Zimtrade can come to carry out all these programs for us, but eventually it is us who then have to deliver. What is it that we need to do? Our products, we have seen them, they are doing very well locally, but it always then it's come down to the issue of price. It is again us, if we lobbied enough to say, what do we need for everyone like this? The question that was thrown in to say, if our incentives, if we've started our competitors, if we done that, if we allowed our products to be commoditized. There was an interesting story we were sharing over lunch at Ziplau, where somewhere we had the same Chinese trying to make your product in the region, but they couldn't get the quality right. So this, because of quality, the product was differentiated. And as long as we keep trying to compete on quality as was presented before, we probably will not make it. The Zimtrade has brought presenters from various countries, year in, year out, we are learning. We need to stop learning. We need to start now implementing. When you hear the story about Mauritius, when you go to Mauritius and you face the industry, you also see that the implementation. So I'm throwing the challenge to say, perhaps we as industry just need to do just a little bit more, because how much more can the facilitators do? Provide the finance RBZ, provide the facility and market studies, Zimtrade, how much more? I'm not saying industry we're not working, but unfortunately, as I said before, we probably just have to scale up a little bit more, provide more in terms of the services that organizations like CZI will do, studies, recommendations, so that we start to, because we have to recognize that there is this challenge. And I think in some interventions that when I spoke to Mujulu, it was basically to say, you know, we've got challenge here, you need to come and hand orders and take us to the market and lock us in. But certainly there is more that we need to do in order, we need to solve the forex issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was a good roundup to why are we here. Let's look at this challenge differently. Let's have new solutions. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Let's take advantage of the advice that we are getting, the opportunities that are presented before us, but together, let's reduce our cost of doing business so that we can really leverage on those pillars for competitiveness. What remains for me, unfortunately, I see the hand, but I'm going to have to ignore the hand. I have to thank my colleagues on the panel. I noticed the hand was up to say our time was up. So thank you very much to our governor. We are spirit, aren't we? So thank you. Mr. Maseni, thank you very much for coming in the board reform to represent the governor. The Executive Director of African Bank, Mr. Siwaka, thank you very much for your insights. I hope we will take them on as we go forward. To the President of CZN, thank you for your insights in rounding up. And to my sister Nancy, Guja, the MD of Keynes, and also representing the Groceries Manufacturers Association or Group. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, and you could see that in the audience there, a lot of companies are going through exactly what you're going through. And to my colleague from Nedbank, thank you very much for your participation. And I think it's time for me to hand over this to the only ISO certified LC. We must make
the why we are here will then be generating the next conference next year. And before we go to the next part, let me just again give some mileage to the sponsors, the platinum sponsor, Stanbic Bank, POSB, thank you so much, gold sponsor, MBCA, the Mikkels and CBZ Holdings, silver sponsors, Medbank, ZB, and media partner, the Financial Gazette. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, the last part is that of the testimonials that are coming through. And we are going to have two that are with us here from Lake Harvest and some Neti Leather Private Limited. And I understand the Lake Harvest is the first one. I'm told, if I stand to be corrected, if that's not the right thing, Mr. James De Lafarge, the Chief Executive Officer of Lake Harvest, will be coming through to make his testimonial. Is he around, or is that the right person, or we're still having Kenneth Jonda coming through? It's you coming through, right? All right, fine. Mr. Kenneth Jonda, please come through. Or the two of you have to come through, and we'll have a lot of fish over here.
We did not sit around. We did look into the region, and we started exporting more into the region, that we had to change our product profile. So now we're down to doing about 50% of our production is being exported into Zambia, mostly, Malawi, Botswana, and South Africa. But we've had challenges as we've been operating, especially in this year. So the exports are dropping, but there are reasons to it. But I'll hand over to James, who will give us a preview on what
we're now exporting 50%, and it's dropping. And that's what I wanted to spend a couple of minutes on. We need to be forward-looking, we need to be realistic. Zimbabwe's fish industry in general, and Lake Harvest equally, exports have been dropping, and the sector's viability is in serious question. There are obviously things that individual companies need to do in terms of efficiency improvements and cost cutting, and we're doing that. But at the same time, the sector needs support, both to survive, to develop, and to expand exports. So I want to take this opportunity just to highlight one or two things which I think will have been brought up in earlier panel discussions, and I hope they can reinforce that message. The first is that Zimbabwe needs a government-led aquaculture policy, fish farming policy, to match those of our neighboring countries with which we compete. And essentially I'm talking about Zambia. We export the bulk of our exports to Zambia, but Zambia is getting better and better and very quickly, and a lot of it is at our expense. This, when I say government-led, it's got to be in collaboration with the private sector and central banks. If we look at 3 or 4 items in particular, and again, some of them will ring true with a lot of people around the room. We request, in terms of support, the Ministry of Finance to review the move made in 2017 on VAT from zero rated, which we've enjoyed for the last 20 years very successfully, to exemption for fish. Ideally, this is for all sales, but if not, then for exports and for the retrospective charge of VAT for capital development over prior years. This will kill us. We talked about the 5% export incentive, welcome. But at the same time, SI 64 had repercussions. The Zambians introduced a 5% surtax on our exports. So basically that netted it out. So there are challenges and they need to be holistic, hence the need for a policy. 55% of our cost of production is feed. And feed is mainly made up of maize and soya. For us to compete, we've got to be able to procure these products at the same price as our competition, i.e. no higher than import parity. GMB now dominates the supply side of the market and sets the price. We need government help to accommodate fish feed producers for export markets. On labour costs, 30% of our costs are labour. But agriculture needs to be aligned with agriculture to have its own NEC. And this needs to be closely monitored to ensure, again, we're competitive with neighbouring countries. So those are all the generic ones, and I could go on, but we'll leave it there. Very specifically, Lake Harvest pays very significant lake lease fees, which other companies don't do and other countries don't charge. These need to be reviewed. We need a one-stop shop for import permits and export permits. These are all easy things, but they are making our life incredibly difficult. So I will leave it there, but just to say that these elements need to be addressed urgently to keep this export sector alive, and as a precursor to inclusion in a more formal national aquaculture policy that is both environmentally sustainable, economically empowering, and export-driven. This will lead us to stand here, I hope, in a year's time and proudly proclaim that our exports have increased and we can play our role in helping the country secure valuable forex. Thank you very much.
And presentations this afternoon is Samaneti Leather Private Limited, Mr. Clive Chirova, to come through and make a presentation. Let's help him come through by putting our hands together, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much to Zimtrade for giving us this opportunity to give a testimony on our export business. My name is Clive Chirova. I'm the director of Samaneti Leathers. We're into manufacturing of leather products. We are mainly focused on exotic skins, which are ostrich, crocodile, and zebra skins. Why we chose this particular exotic skins is because we can make a handbag, maybe on a leather material, and sell it maybe for $100. But you could make the same handbag in ostrich skin and maybe sell it for $1,000. So what we decided to do was to stick to that kind of exotic skins so that we can limit our labor in terms of production cost. But what we have seen in the few years that we've been exporting to Zambia, Botswana, that is regionally, and we've done also exports to China and Canada. The challenge that we have had is as and when we receive the payments, because the money is coming into an account that is sitting with the money that is also from our everyday trading here locally. But when we now want to go and purchase raw materials so that we can cater for the next order, we are now having some of the suppliers now trying to say we cannot take transfers, or if you want to pay by transfer, put a certain percentage on top. But the challenge now is the dollar that I've earned through an export is now being, I'm now being asked to top it up so that I can purchase things like glue, things like thread, and some of the people that we are working with, yes, we do understand why they're doing it, because they're explaining that they may not be able to import next time when you want these things, but I think RBZ need to have a look into that to say, if you have processes that are coming from an export sale, is there any way where we can hedge that amount or say, this, we know this money came through an export, and when that money is going to the market to buy something, can it buy its worth? That is the biggest challenge that we are beginning now to have. Because when we go to a trader and say, I want this, and if you have to say there was 100% retention on the export for export process, yes, that is true, but if I have to wait to get the real cash and then pay the client in cash, the trader in cash, it means I have to spend every other day at the bank, and also that is affecting my production. So we have a challenge there to say, how do we protect our export proceeds so that they can get us the real value that they are worth? But otherwise, cannot go into the other benefits of exports to those that are also not yet exporting. I think it is beneficial to both the industries that will be exporting and also to those that are to the nation at large. But otherwise, that is our major challenge of how do we maintain our export process so that they can benefit us. Thank you so much.
What is left of us now is the vote of thanks, and it's my pleasure to call to the front Mr. Dennis Choguya, Sales and Marketing Manager, Verican Pharmaceuticals, to give us the vote of thanks. It's coming through that side. Why don't you put our hands together?
Oh, I know you're kind of tired, and you can't wait for me to leave the podium. But really, it is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks for this conference. And allow me to start by quoting St. Ambrose, who said there is no duty that is more urgent than to return thanks. And I just want to do exactly that, to return thanks to a couple of people and to all of you. I, here on behalf of Zimtrade, the board, management, and the staff, and we really would like to express our sincere gratitude, firstly to our international speakers, whom I believe would all agree did a good job to inspire us as a people, as a country. These are not countries that are from very far. Mauritius is in SADC with us, and Kenya, they are fellow brethren. So I really feel their experiences should motivate us and know that it's possible. So to Dev and to Eva, we say thank you, and Zimbabwe owes you for your sacrifice. We also would like to say thank you to our session chairs. I'm sure you would all accept that they did a very good job, and to the panelists, they led insightful discussions, and I believe we've all benefited. What has come out clear though is, as a people, we need to stop learning, we need to start doing. I'm sure it's Napoleon who says action is the only measure of intelligence. If you don't take action, don't claim intelligence. Okay? And also would like to thank our distinguished sponsors. They've been mentioned by name by our ISO certified MC, our platinum sponsors, Stanbic Bank and POSB, our gold sponsors, MBCA Bank, CBZ and Nikos, silver sponsors ZB and Medbank. I really would like to say, without your support today, there really would have been no conference, and we're grateful. To our media partners, Financial Gazette, Rosero Communications, for putting all the fancy designs and helping out with the communications. Would like to say thank you. And for the PA system, sound reinforcement, you will note it as well. And Mr. Manyika, I'm sure you would all agree that he did a good job as the MC. Maybe we'll talk to Dr. Gadzikwa to, consider sneaking him into ISO certification. We also would like to thank Tanganda and Dairy Board for refreshments. I'm sure you saw Tingamira, that's a Tanganda tea brand, and Aqualite, a Dairy Board brand. We really are grateful to you. And our most sincere gratitude goes to you, the community and fraternity of exporters, because you, the people, Zimtrade is mandated and is working hard to serve day in and day out. And as Zimtrade, we salute really your tenacity, your fighting spirit, swimming upstream, seeking to increase exports against all odds. And we believe together it's possible, it can be done. I'm sure you would also agree that an export conference of this magnitude and nature wouldn't have been put together in a day or overnight. The wheels started turning many months ago, and to that end, we really would want to recognize Zimtrade staff and management for your meticulous attention to detail, for your bird's eye view, ensuring everything goes on well. It's almost like, I think in your eyes, a movie being replayed or something like that, because you figured it out in your mind and it's right before you. We really would want to thank you for your dedication. Would like to thank you, really, all of you, for ensuring the tasks that had been allocated to you were carried out meticulously and to the end. I'm sure all of us had to come out of our comfort zones, including me, because many of my friends said, "Who bought you a jacket?" But I also had to come out of my comfort zone. I'm rarely seen in a jacket, and to look for one so that I can give this vote of thanks. So as we are waiting for the dinner in the evening, I say, may God bless you all and God bless your companies and your families. Thank you for everything you've done.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.